Hey guys, thanks for joining us for another episode of CFB Talks Digital Assets. And it's a particularly special one today. We have the CEO of the firm that launched the first cryptocurrency ETF, right? This firm, of course, is Hashdex, and it's based out of Sao Paulo in Brazil. That ETF was launched in 2020 in Bermuda and then in Sao Paulo a year later. That was just the beginning of their track record. It's not a sort of an exaggeration to say that they're amongst the leading crypto native investment management firms in the world, and certainly the largest in terms of assets under management in Brazil, managing assets focusing on DeFi, Web3, and of course the major large caps, Bitcoin and Ether. Most of these assets strike their net asset value against indices which are either calculated by or benchmark administrated by CF Benchmarks. So as you can imagine, we're particularly stoked to have the CEO, Marcelo Sampaio, with us today, and his expertise, and unmatched expertise in the market. So Marcelo, very, very pleased to have you on board.
Thank you so much, Ken. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and of course, not only myself, our lead research analyst, Gabe, is part of the conversation too. So yeah, let's kick things off. Marcelo, one of the most interesting things I saw recently was the Hashdex Outlook webinar, which I believe was actually broadcast a few days ago. And there were a few points raised in that which were particularly striking. And I think, because you're pretty unique as a practitioner, one of the most experienced practitioners within the crypto space that is also a investment practitioner as well, and a crypto native one. What are your top key takeaways for the outlook of 2023 going forward?
Well, there's so much there, but basically, what I think is worth pointing out is that most people or investors out there, they have been thinking that 2022 was a bad year in general, and and obviously because of the FTX blow-ups, Lunas and so on, right? Price tanked, and so on. But actually, it was a great year for crypto in so many ways. Basically, everything in crypto improved, got better, literally, the technology keeps progressing, regulation keeps coming, depending on the countries, but actually is coming together in a number of jurisdictions. Adoption is growing.
Yes, indeed.
Basically everything is getting better, but ultimately we have as an industry, as a nascent industry, all this craze that happens, whenever we go to, especially centralized projects, that's what has been failing, not the technology itself. But for crypto, it has been a tremendous year, and 2023 is very likely, we should expect bigger things.
Absolutely. I mean, clearly, one of the most salient things for most people, both within the space and also outside of the space, whether this is an informed opinion or not, is that maybe the regulatory piece needs a great deal of attention. Do you see that attention? I mean, I think you'll be aware, the discussion that you had on the webinar was with our CEO, Sui Chung. His view is that the regulatory piece accelerates in 2023 because of the implosions that we had, of FTX most recently, rather than puts people off, obviously, and that would most likely bring more players into the industry. But is that your view, or how do you see that working out?
Absolutely. If you can say one good side of FTX, and again, not trying to say it's absolutely painful for the industry,
Sure.
especially for investors who lost a lot. I'm not trying to make this a good thing, but also there are positive aspects of that, and maybe the most positive is that it puts an enormous pressure on the regulators, especially in America, to come with long-weighted rules, not restrictive rules necessarily, because crypto is a technology, like we said, crypto still progressing. It's just I like to point to Enron, right? I mean, when Enron exploded, basically like electricity kept working perfectly. Like it had nothing to do with
Absolutely.
that, right? So it's crypto after FTX. But we expect that regulators, come, like together and bring, like rules that will help this market to be organized and developed. I truly think that if there is one positive contribution that FTX will do for this industry, will be that,
Sure. Sure.
and we should expect that, like to happen, not, like super further, or like not in a, like in is the new future, near future, like because
Sure.
FTX like is super involved with all the political scene, like in America. So anyway, we should
Sure.
should get to, to see some new stuff coming like soon, hopefully.
Sure, sure. Now, that's absolutely, it makes a great deal of sense. But as just an additional point on following on from that, clearly FTX to a very large extent was not necessarily, as you've pointed out earlier, was not necessarily a crypto problem. The FTX misdemeanors, such as we're aware of they are at this stage, clearly there's a lot more that's going to come out. There's going to very likely be a litigation process as well going forward. So we have some caution in our views and how we speak about it. But a lot of what we know about FTX so far was really almost like a conventional counterparty failure, and the type of malfeasance that you might see in any sort of financial counterparty has got absolutely nothing to do with crypto. So if you think about it in that way, is there anything that the regulations that we might have maybe in a year's time that we don't have now could actually do to have solved it or to have prevented it?
The issue is always transparency. You see,
Yeah.
it's and actually, ironically,
Yeah.
very ironically, blockchains and crypto or Web3, like
Yes.
it's a hell of a tool, like to give this transparency, like through open source and through like public blockchains. Um, um, but in the short term, I would say that we'll have to rely on the governments, like on the regulators, to actually force or enforce this transparency, like along the centralized players. If this had been around, very unlikely we would have seen, like this crazy situation, like with FTX, because
Sure.
like they could not have done what they've. I mean, what
Absolutely.
they've done like for all that long, at least, like so. Yeah, so regulation will provide this transparency in the short term. Long term, like it should probably be through native, like Web3 networks. I hope.
We would absolutely agree with that, of course. No, I mean it's refreshing to actually hear you say all this stuff, because it's essentially at bottom there's a positivity and an optimism about it. So let's talk about crypto. Let's talk about protocols, and let's
Yeah.
talk about what is in your mind something that's really promising, maybe a little bit nearer term than far off, that you've got your eye on, that we can perhaps look at for next year in terms of a protocol that is something that people that could catch a lot of attention?
It's interesting, like our approach is never to say a protocol specifically, especially
Sure,
because it's so hard to predict what's going to work.
sure, sure,
Uh,
sure.
with that said, like we like some specific theses or themes, like and other than Bitcoin alone, like we can definitely point at least like these three, like which I would say that Web3 or all the world of smart contracts, that we've seen so much happening last 2 years, like especially like a number of blockchains like Solana, Polkadot, so on, trying
Mm,
to fix the stuff that Ethereum was or they
mm,
thought like was delayed or would not solve, like. But now I think we're back, like and Ethereum is back to the graces, I guess, like after the merge.
right. Yeah,
But Web3 is a big one, like smart contracts. I think
yeah.
there's nothing that tangible, like for the industry, like to actually address or to solve so many problems. So Web3 is one. DeFi, which is maybe the double click or the first big use case for smart contracts, like is another one
Mm,
worth mentioning. Maybe what I would say is that DeFi, through a number of blockchains solving a number of different problems, will be more and more integrated to traditional finance. and actually will become a very powerful tool to all the banks out there, all the brokers out there, to actually like provide better service or services that were not even
Mm.
possible before for their clients, right? And to end with, I would say that all the NFT world, like, and we could go to so many directions, but
Mm.
NFTs, like in the sense of pretty much like digitalizing, like the material world, like that is a
Yes, not
trend.
necessarily art. Then could be anything, because NFT is just a non fungible token. Doesn't necessarily have to have an aesthetic function. So I think that's what you're referring to. Not
Absolutely.
necessarily art. Yeah.
What I love the most, but it is not that it's like just super close to happen, but it's on its way. It's identity. It is
Oh,
very
yes.
hard to think that in 2023 already, like we still have passports, we still have
Yeah.
social security numbers in US and something else in Europe or something else in Latin America or Brazil, whatever. Like how come we don't have like this unified identity that actually can do so much more than just prove that you are you? Like it can just be, let's say, like a wallet, then actually will account for everything you are or you have, or anyways, like we can imagine the future, but NFTs will allow like a true like digital identity to happen in a global level. And that's one use case for NFTs. We have so many, right?
Sure.
It's like
Yes,
everybody
indeed.
gets stuck with the art thing, which is great, like, but it's just
Yeah.
like a very like little chapter of the story, right? So anyways.
Absolutely. And this reminds me of a conversation I've had with you, Gabe, as well recently, in terms of the sort of trends that possibly showing some glimmers in terms of the sort of like returns profile of some of our portfolio indices. And even if not necessarily something necessarily that, certainly stuff that you've maybe noticed. What are the sort of maybe I should say more like categories, maybe CF DAX categories, CF digital asset classification structure categories that could perhaps be see some sort of like ascendance in 2023 because of their use cases being showing some demand, in your view.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing, I think, in the scaling side is going to just kind of continue to grow, I think, in 2023. So, Marcelo, you briefly kind of hinted at this, and there's a lot of, I think, material constraints that some of these layer one blockchains were dealing with. And the technology on the scaling side has just been kind of extraordinary in addressing these shortfall kind of bandwidth issues. What that does, I think, in the long term is open up the possibility for more real world use cases. So when you start thinking the adoption of the metaverse, Web3, NFTs, being minted, it's just going to kind of streamline and make that way more efficient. So these are some of the things that I'm excited about. I also want to say, with DeFi, it's very easy to take what we saw last month with
Yeah.
the forex swap that we saw with the Singaporean central bank, and just kind of extrapolate out the possibilities of what more tokenized assets can bring to society. So if you think of equities or fixed income being tokenized, and the fact that you could get these settlement times way down, that's something that is just going to help. I think push financial services further into the future. So these are kind of like these mega trends that we're going to kind of. I'm kind of like preluding our outlook for 2023, but it's definitely an exciting time. One thing I wanted to ask Marcelo, just to kind of get his thoughts, were for these potential investors that are kind of on the fence about jumping into the crypto world or investing. What are some key things that you would like to just kind of address, or we've had so much, I think, negative headlines, like you were saying, that have kind of, I think, overshadowed some of the positive developments. And so as someone who's, I think, a lot closer to the end client than we are here at CFB, it's just always interesting to get your
Yeah,
thoughts on
absolutely.
this.
Yeah. So what I would say is this: most investors, like they try to price crypto in this specific time. Say, oh,
Mm.
now it's cheap, now it's expensive,
Right.
like, or this thing is dead, and it's interesting because what we try to to talk them into is that, guys, like, it's not about certainty, it's about possibilities, right? And the truth is, nobody knows at this point in time how much crypto is worth. All we can say is this, like, from the stuff we know, from the use cases that exist, right? You have this new platform that just for the stuff that exists now, like, if like, one specific blockchain, and we have like few cases that we can point to, like, they just like, pretty much like capture a fraction, like, of this current industry or market. It's so much bigger than it is now, right? That is already worth for you to have a small location to actually follow that from the inside. But the truth is, generally, that's not how technology works, right? Generally, whenever like a technology captures this fraction, or like, or disrupt even this market, it inputs so much productivity in the system that it should be an order of magnitude, or should make this whatever market, like, an order of magnitude larger than it is today. Like, I just like to point to, like, from previous like disruptive tax, like, and a very simple one is the email. Like, compare, like, if I came to people, say, look, we're going to replace handwritten letters, like, through this new thing like email, and people say, yeah, like, what is the size of this market? Like, okay, and like, but the truth is, like, because you have now email, you're gonna send so much more messages than actually you used to write. Like with your hands, like, because like, it's so much more productive. So you can take basically any case. So if you take, like, if Bitcoin, like, ends up being really like a viable store of value over time, a digital store of value, like, very likely the store of value market will grow a lot, because a number of people, institutions, will just use store of value in ways that they never could before. If smart contracts end up being a thing, and I mean, this one is tending to 1% to actually be big in the future, like, oh my God, like, how much productivity do you input in whatever side of this? Are we talking about apps? Are we talking about the legal system? Are we talking about anything, right? I mean, it's so much bigger. It's emails versus handwritten letters. So for an investors, like, we don't know how the future will look like. Like, it's very hard to say how much this thing's going to value, but like, the potential is so huge that every single portfolio, I'm talking about my grandmother, I'm talking about the pension fund, like, I'm talking about really, like, the entire range, they should start having a very little allocation, like, very long, because it's going to be very volatile.
Yes,
Again,
absolutely.
Right.
so the price is not knowing about how much it's worth, right? So that's why, like, really, like, there is the potential price out there, like, at the end of the line. So the thing is, everybody should have that, and you should stop this discussion that FTX imploded, or this or that, like, or now it's expensive, or now it's too cheap, let me buy. I mean, just buy and hold for a very long time. And that's why we like so much, like, the idea of indices, right? If you have really, like, a thesis around smart contracts, great, have a smart contracts index, like, we're going to serve you that, like, with you guys, like, if you want to have, like, literally, like, you just want to be invested in crypto, great, we have an index for that too. Like, it's the beta of the market, which is not Bitcoin at this point anymore, at least. So anyways, like, as an investor, like, don't try to say this is going to be dead, or this is going to be, or it's going to be this blockchain. Have a first exposure to the market, and then you go from there.
Absolutely. It's this is exactly why we like to have people like yourselves, but especially yourself, obviously, Marcelo, on, because it gives us that perspective which we're not able to articulate necessarily ourselves as a benchmark administrator. Now, we've got to that part of the sort of podcast that we normally like to give a sort of price check of some major cryptos in focus. And of course, we usually start with the OG Bitcoin and the CME CF Bitcoin reference rate, or more particularly its real-time version, the CME CF Bitcoin real-time index. That's trading at $17,909, up about 2.7%, so a little bit higher on the day. Its Ether counterpart, the CME CF Ether dollar real-time index, is trading up 3.4% at $1,339. And another crypto in focus, Matic, aka Polygon, in focus because of that DeFi trade, one of the first live DeFi trades that JP Morgan was involved in. That's trading at about 93.4 cents, up about 2.2% on the day. Marcelo, you're almost touching on a kind of network effects type valuation concept. I don't want to say methodology, it's a bit too specific, but concept in terms of how people should perhaps view the cryptocurrency industry. Is that something that you'd like to promote a little bit more for a broader sort of a consumption? I mean, as institutions, as an institution yourself, and you're dealing with a lot of institutions in the market,
Yeah.
generally speaking, there's not so much a difficulty in terms of conveying how you should view the market, how you should perhaps value the opportunity. But in terms of individuals and consumers and broader adoption in general, do you think that promoting this network effect type valuation concept for the cryptocurrency industry would be a fruitful lever to push?
Yeah, I think it's definitely an alternative. Let's say because it captures like a number of the variables like that anyone should be following, right? That comes
Sure.
from adoption, the basically the network activity and so on. Uh,
Mm.
but often I like to remind that valuation methods are like really consensus basis, right? And generally, we tend to forget that. We tend to think that things like DCF, they were born with those.
Yeah.
I always ask people, say like, did options have prices before Black and Scholes? And obviously it had, right?
Sure.
Generally, this is something that comes from the academia, or it starts most of the time in the academia. You have like some people coming and say, yeah, so this specific asset, how about we try to value this in this way and that way, and it started resonating with some other people, and then eventually gets to the market, and it gets mainstream as a
Yeah.
consensus. It's a
Yeah.
way to see things, right? And which a lot of people see in that way, and that forced the market to actually try to optimize for that. But the thing is, we don't have those consensus, at least until now in crypto. We have many proposals. You brought one, which honestly I think is one of the good out there. But we don't have that, at least spread out in the market in a way that say, yeah, that's the way we're doing this. Or you could be a value investor, say that's the way I see it, and eventually the market will
Sure.
catch up.
Okay.
But eventually, we don't have that happening in the open market right now. I think these books are yet to be written, to be very honest, and that's why generally being long is the only way to go for most
Mm.
investors, unless you are really devoting your life into crypto and you have a very specific skill set, in tools in order to actually to try to trade this, or to actually work with in the everyday trading basis. But anyways, so I think it's a good one. It's just not what we can use at this point, in a very safe, secure way, or solid way, to actually
Sure.
run.
Sure. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, we're coming up to towards the end of our chat now. Unfortunately, I mean, it's basically I'm sure we could all sit here and chat for another 30, 40 minutes, but
For sure.
time needs must. One final thing which I would like to ask Marcelo is what are the top line sort of like roadmap points or sort of goals that you'd like to hit for Hashdex in 2023?
Yeah. So for us here, our play, it's like we told, we like to provide all kinds of investors, literally from institutions to actually retail investors, the best products out there, and with investment thesis that they can understand, without needing, at least at first, to be specialists, right? So you might not necessarily have an opinion about proof of work or Bitcoin, or if proof of work is gonna be bitten by proof of stake. I don't know, but you might have an opinion, said, okay, crypto might be a thing in the future. I want to be exposed. That's easier at this point in time. So we provide the best way for people to do that.
Sure.
We can go to thematics, like we said, define. We have all these products out there. So our 2023, what we're gonna do is that keep launching very innovative, solid products to the market. So we're already in. But the coolest thing is that we will take this top products that we have, the best sellers we have now, and we'll be taking to other geographies. So Europe for us is next.
Yes.
Is already happening, but it's where we're going to invest a lot of our time and resources in 2023 to actually take pretty much to do what we've done in Latin America, which made us the largest player in the region, to Europe too. So yeah, so that's like among the coolest things I think we're gonna do. New products, like so, new theses, like are increasing our product portfolio, but most importantly, increasing like our presence in new geos. That really are striving to have like great products, like the ones we believe we have.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Marcelo Sampaio, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been informative. It's been everything that we actually thought it would be and a little bit more. I'm going to ask you before we sign off whether you will come back on again. Of course, not too soon. We're not going to take up that much more of your time, but please do come back again if at all possible.
Anytime. I mean, it's a pleasure to be here. Like, just invite me back, and I'll be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, guys, for listening to another episode of CFB Talks Digital Assets. I'm Ken, and I've been joined by lead research analyst Gabe Selby and, of course, Marcelo. And we'll see you again next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you all. See ya.